I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. We're starting tonight with a wrestling match of ideas involving giving people tents who are homeless. The big question, does handing out the tents save lives? Or does handing out the tents enable people to continue living outside and drive them even deeper into their homelessness? The way the city and the county are trying to answer that question tonight is our big story. City leadership has said it does not want tents handed out except under the most extreme circumstances. The county does not agree. And on top of both, a legal settlement over a lawsuit that says the tents block sidewalk access and violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. Here's our Blair Best.
This week, Multnomah County officials introduced a new proposal around one of Portland's most controversial issues, handing out tents and tarps to homeless people.
This is obviously a flashpoint between the city and the county. It's something that's really important to the public.
The proposal includes limiting how often and who is able to give out the supplies. Those at the county supply center will prioritize purchasing high-quality and durable two-person tents and repair kits. Licensed service providers doing direct outreach must agree to hand out one tent per person, along with shelter information and a list of where people can't set up camp. County officials promise to track all of it, and during severe weather, the supplies will be available to even more providers. Not all county commissioners are on board.
So I was disappointed.
It's hard to formulate thoughts about that proposal.
And from my perspective, we should be looking at ways and how we align with Mayor-elect Wilson's goal to end unsheltered homelessness.
We've probably handed out at least 10 times as many tents and tarps as there are people living on the streets, and it doesn't look like it solved our homeless problem.
This proposal caught the attention of John DiLorenzo.
It's ridiculous.
He's the attorney behind the 2023 lawsuit against the city of Portland, arguing the city was in violation of the American with Disabilities Act for allowing tents and tarps to block sidewalk access. As part of a settlement, Portland agreed not to let any contractors hand out tents and tarps. If the county's Joint Office of Homeless Services, which is contracted by the city, implements this new tent and tarp distribution policy, DiLorenzo says Portland could be in violation of that settlement.
We're on a collision course, and we're going to have to ask the federal court for orders to enforce the agreement.
I think the city and the county need to have the discussion together and not just have this be a decision made behind closed doors.
DiLorenzo is already planning next steps in federal court come January.
That could have easily been avoided.
Blair joins me now. So interesting. Why does John DiLorenzo say this could have easily been avoided?
So, Pat, remember, this whole thing comes as the city's partnership with the county's Joint Office of Homeless Services hangs in the balance. The majority of city council wanted to pull out of that agreement. That agreement really hinges on the city sending about $30 million taxpayer dollars a year to that county-led office. Now, many of the city commissioners wanted to pull out because they just weren't pleased with how the county was spending that money and just really responding to the crisis in general. Now, DiLorenzo was saying if they did pull out, the joint office would technically no longer be a contractor of the city. So whatever the county decides to do when it comes to tents and tarps would not put the city in jeopardy of violating that settlement. However, one day after the election, those same city commissioners, all of them running for office, by the way, decided to abandon that idea to pull out of that agreement. And last week on Straight Talk, Commissioner Dan Ryan told us why they decided to do that.
Well, Mayor-elect Wilson made it really clear that they would like us to table it. So out of respect for the new mayor, it just was good manners. And so that was the first. And the intention is still there. The intention for all of us is to improve the system. I think we can all admit the system needs improvement. I think we also need to take some time to all figure out what our North Star is. And I've been a little frustrated over the last few years that I haven't heard that, not just from the city and the county, but also Metro, who continues to play a very big role.
All right, Blair, but let's get back to that policy. I understand not even all the county commissioners are on board.
That's right. So a big sticking point for them and for John DiLorenzo is why county leaders believe it is so important to continue handing out tents and tarps. They argue it's life-saving. A lot of people agree that it can be life-saving in some circumstances, like during severe weather, not more life-saving than being inside. But this week, the big issue was who county officials talked with to gather that data. They said they talked with homeless people and service providers.
They interviewed stakeholders. Well, it turns out that the stakeholders were service providers and those with lived experience. Well, of course, people who want tents are going to want the county to continue handing out tents. And of course, nonprofits that are distributing tents are going to want the county to go on distributing tents. I have no idea why we had to spend county funds to generate fancy pie charts and a survey to show that.
All right, so this policy is not permanent. They're going to review it twice next year, once in the spring and once later on in the year.
Interesting stuff. And what happens between now and then?
So they're going to follow this interim policy and crack down on who can pick up these supplies. But also another interesting note that I wanted to add is on Wednesday, county officials told me they've actually run out of tents after the county chair told them to stop purchasing tents earlier this year. And they plan to start buying more come the winter season.
There's always something.
Always something.
Thank you, Blair. Appreciate it. And now to a positive update on an exclusive story that Blair's been following all week. Immigrant families in Northeast Portland who were living on the streets with their young children after someone told them to come here for work and to get help with legal documents. Within the last couple of hours, someone who works with the Salvation Army texted Blair to let her know that those families are now inside a shelter that was not far from where they were camping near the Portland Airport at 82nd Avenue. Several of you emailed us with concerns about the story last night. Thanks for caring. They are doing better tonight. The Oregon Employment Department is gearing up for what they're calling their busy season. They say this time of year, they typically do get more people who need help filing for unemployment. But the office has struggled to actually pay those benefits in a timely manner in the past. It's an issue we often hear about from you. Back in June, the department was getting people's first payments to them within 3 weeks in about 40% of the time. Not great. That ranked Oregon as one of the worst states in the country for such things. The national standard is to do that 87% of the time. Now that number did start ticking up throughout the year. From July to September, Oregon paid people on time about 71% of the time. That's in the middle of the pack as far as other states go, but still below that national standard. Today, the Employment Department says they're getting people's benefits to them within 3 weeks around 79% of the time. Still a little bit better. They say that if you file for unemployment today, you'll have to wait probably around 22 days to get your money if everything goes smoothly. That is a key. They now have money to hire more staff, and those folks, we're told, are learning how to use the new unemployment system called Francis, but it is taking a while.
I think a lot of that is us still working through and fine-tuning the system and finding what wording might be confusing for people, where there are processes that we can continue to make adjustments to. We're continuing to do that, and we'll always be looking for those friction points. And those new employees that we hired are also still gaining proficiency using the new system. The unemployment insurance program, even with the new tools where it's much quicker to train them, it's still a set of complicated programs, and it takes time for people to really get fully proficient to be able to answer all of the different questions that come up and to do that quickly and accurately.
Now, some people told us when they had problems or questions, they were waiting on the phone for hours, sometimes never getting through. Earlier this year, the department actually shut down their phone lines on Monday, and they reduced the hours they were taking calls, all in an effort to try to catch up on the backlog. Well, the phones are back to full service now, but if you call, you might still be waiting a while to talk to someone, according to officials. So how long? Well, they didn't really say. So maybe, settle in with a good book when you dial that number. But it also does seem things are slowly getting better, so take heart. Now to the state of Washington, where the breach of a state computer network has put gun sales on hold. The weapons can be purchased, but the legally required background checks, well, those cannot happen right now. And a lawsuit could change that, and it could be on the horizon. Drew Mickelson explains.
The state shut down its judicial computer network about 2 weeks ago after what officials are calling unauthorized activity. It's not clear if this was a ransomware incident yet, but the state just wanted to be cautious. But the damage already done could trigger lawsuits from gun rights advocates.
1 o'clock movement.
The cyber breach has also impacted prisons. Court appearances and trials aren't meeting required deadlines. The State Patrol says it's taking longer to get speeding tickets processed. And currently, it is not possible for the state to conduct background checks to ensure a gun buyer can take possession of their gun. What's typically a 10-day process could take weeks.
It's more than frustrating. It is really reaching the point of legal action.
The Second Amendment Foundation is threatening to sue the state over the decision to halt gun purchase background checks by taking down the judicial system's network.
You cannot simply put people's constitutional rights on a shutdown. That doesn't work. If this had to do with anything but firearms, you'd be reading about it on the front page of every newspaper in the state.
I use the analogy of the bridge being out. If the bridge is out, the bridge is out. You just have to pull over and wait.
State Patrol spokesperson Chris Loftus says state law requires background checks by only one system, the one that was taken offline. So there are no other options.
We can't do something that's unsafe when it comes to making sure that the people that are able to legally possess, carry, and have firearms are the people who have had the right backgrounds checked, and we're not putting guns into the wrong hands.
Now, the Washington State Administrative Office of Courts says no personal information was compromised in the breach, and the hope is that the network can come back online sometime next week. Gun rights advocates say they may still sue to force the state to have a backup system in place in case there's another breach like this in the future. Coming up next on The Story, what started as one man's hope to simply use and enjoy a nearby body of water turned into a years-long legal battle with Lake Oswego. How a judge recently ruled and why this drama may still not be over yet. When The Story returns. A Clackamas County judge has issued a landmark ruling to open access to the tightly controlled Lake Oswego to the public. This all started when one of the plaintiffs moved to the city of Lake Oswego way back in 2007 and wanted to swim and kayak in the body of water. But he soon found out there was no public access, even from the small public parks right there. And as Alma McCarty reports, it kicked off a legal battle that has some resolution tonight after a decade of legal struggle.
You know, maybe I was naive in the beginning and just thought that, you know, it's a public lake, we're at a public park, and, you know, there should be public access. So it seemed pretty kind of open and shut.
But as Todd Prager learned, it was anything but, as his push for access became a years-long legal fight with the city of Lake Oswego and the Lake Oswego Corporation.
It was just really important that the community understood that this is a public lake. There should be public access. There's rights to access. And of course, it's just such an Oregon thing that we have access to natural resources. It seemed like a natural issue.
And this week, a Clackamas County judge sided with him, declaring that an ordinance banning public access to the lake through city-owned parks is illegal, and ordering the city to allow it here, Lower Millennium Plaza.
It's like 9 to 12 feet of this portion of the stairs that is not within the railroad easement, and then that continues. This is all part of the property here.
According to the judge, both Sunderleaf Plaza and Headley Walkway, separate parks on either side of this plaza, would still be restricted for now. Longtime residents living on the lake have never doubted its beauty or appeal.
You would think after 36 years we'd be used to it and bored with it, but no, it's just beautiful. We're very fortunate.
But Bill Newman says he's quite concerned about opening it up to the public. His main issues, water safety and water quality.
It's the upkeep on the lake that we've paid over the 36 years we've been on the water. In the beginning, it was cheap. It was $400 a year, but now it's $2,000, I think. And it's for water quality and so forth. And these people aren't helping us share that cost.
A spokesperson for the city of Lake Oswego told us they're reviewing the judge's opinion. Prager says he's looking forward to working with the city.
Just a win-win for everybody and the community and the state as a whole. We think we can achieve that.
Alma McCarty, KGW News.
Thanks, Alma. Meanwhile, the board president of the Lake Oswego Corporation, which controls the lake and is collectively owned by lakeside property owners, appears to be promising an appeal, telling us, quote, the court's opinion makes no secret of the fact that it is trying to change decades of established law in Oregon. We think that is wrong, and we hope that the Oregon Court of Appeals and Supreme Court will respect local governments and the long-recognized property rights of Oregonians. In the meantime, we remain willing to work with all interested parties to try to find a solution that works for everyone. Coming up next on The Story, the #1 Oregon Ducks are in action tomorrow against the Wisconsin Badgers in a game that you can watch right here on KGW. We're heading into the KGW vault for a look back at some of the history between the two teams and a bit of nostalgia for you Duck fans. That's coming up when The Story returns. Ah, yes. College football takes center stage on KGW tomorrow afternoon as the #1 Oregon Ducks take on Wisconsin at Camp Randall in the Badger State. Kickoff set for 4:30 our time. As many of you know, we don't really talk sports that much on the story, although we do love it. But when we do, we're going to take a deep dive. This will be the 7th time the two programs meet on the gridiron. The first 6 games were an even split. The Badgers won the first 3 games in 1977, 78, and 2000. But the Ducks won the next 3 games, most recently the Rose Bowl in 2020. This will be the first time the two teams meet as conference foes since Oregon is now part of the Big Ten. The Ducks are undefeated this year atop the college football rankings. Wisconsin is 5-4. No surprise, Oregon, a huge favorite. And while tomorrow's game will be in Wisconsin, we went down to the KGW vault and found the last time that the two teams met down in Eugene. Many of you will recognize a few of the names and faces. It was the Ducks' first game of the season, September 1st, 2001.
The Ducks start the season with their eye on the big prize, and that would be holding this thing up at the end of the season. Sluggish first half for both teams, but the Ducks find their offense in plenty of time. Joey Harrington to tight end Justin Peel. Oregon races out to a 10-0 lead. The Ducks had to replace a bunch of people defensively, and it showed at times. The Badgers were pestering the Duck defensive backs, but Oregon was up 10-7 at halftime. Sometimes quarterbacks have favorite targets, and it looks like Harrington has taken a liking to Peel. Peel was everywhere tonight, dropping a couple, but also scoring a couple times. Ducks up 17-14 in the third. It was back and forth the entire second half. Wisconsin went up 21-17, but then the Ducks go to the bullpen, and running back Ontario Smith gave them a huge lift. His first game as a Duck was exactly what the doctor ordered. 8 carries, 88 yards. This one set up a go-ahead touchdown. Ducks take a 24-21 lead. It came down to the fourth quarter, and Wisconsin was badgering the Ducks secondary. Wide receiver Lee Evans is one player the Ducks won't soon forget. 168 yards receiving. This catch set up a Wisconsin score that put the Badgers up 28-24. But Joey Harrington has turned into Captain Comeback. 4 minutes left in the game. He sneaks in. Ducks surge ahead 31-28. Wisconsin got the ball back and just needed a field goal to tie, but the Duck defense led by Quinn Dorsey came up big down the stretch. What an opener. The 7th-ranked Ducks beat number 22 Wisconsin 31-28.
We had so many great efforts today and so many people stepping up and doing a great job. It's a total team win.
How about that? A little look back in time. Harrington and the Ducks finished the season 11-1, winning the then Pac-10 title. They went on to beat Colorado in the Fiesta Bowl. But this year there are national championship hopes down in Eugene. The next step toward making that happen airs tomorrow afternoon, 4:30, right here at KGW. Hey, you know, one of the benefits of this job is that sometimes people say my name on TV, they see it, and then they wonder if maybe we're long-lost relatives. That happened recently, and it turns out the answer today was yes. This morning, I had coffee on Vancouver's waterfront with this delightful lady, 92-year-old Lorene Doris Baumgartner. Her family spells the Doris name differently than we do, but family lore attributes that to misspelled documents from Ellis Island. She grew up in Butte, Montana, a place a lot of immigrants from Ireland and Scotland settled because there was good work in the mines in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and beyond. My dad and his family grew up there too. He died last spring at the age of 93. I met with Lorene and her daughter Lynn, and we compared notes. Turns out she'd met my dad several times when they were kids and knew my aunts and other relatives and even my grandmother, who died long before I was born. It was nice to connect with relatives that I never knew I had. I'm glad Lorene's daughter Lynn took the time to email me and that I had the time to share a cup of coffee and lifetime memories. And now a bit of personal news. I'm leaving the story and KGW at the end of the year. It's been an amazing experience working here at the station with all the talented professionals the last 34 years. I mean, that's more than half my life. Why am I leaving? Well, I've always cared about Portland and Multnomah County, and anchoring this show and hearing from so many of you has really given me a close-up look at the problems facing our area. And now I want to make a more direct impact. So I'm going to work for the incoming district attorney for Multnomah County, Nathan Vasquez. I think he has a lot of great ideas, and I'm excited to help amplify those ideas and the work the DA's office does in general as his director of communications. I'll still be here for a little bit, and the story will go on without me. More on that in coming weeks. In the meantime, thanks for watching and supporting our show. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this show. But remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. It goes on and on and on. For those of you watching live on TV, the Timbers 360 is coming your way next. And for the rest of you watching online, don't forget, you can stream the story on your own schedule. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. Have a great weekend. I'll see you right back here on Monday night at 6:30.